don't know how to feel about what happened. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad my neighbors got the closure they needed, but the outcome also became the reason I moved to another state. Sure, a different city would have sufficed, but after what I've been through, I don't want to be anywhere near my hometown. I don't want to say its name. I am, however, willing to tell you what happened there. It all began 4 years ago. I was thinking of starting a garage sale, so I looked for things to get rid of. I started in the attic, which had more clutter than the basement. I was looking around when I found something wedged between two boxes. I knelt down and saw that it was a disposable camera. I'd never used the camera. I wasn't even sure how it got in my attic. Another strange thing about the camera was that the label was removed. I concluded that it was left behind by my house's previous owner. However, there was one thing wrong with that. I'd lived in that house for several months by then. Plus, the attic was completely empty when I moved in. The camera was dusty, as if it had been there for years. The only thing I could think of doing was getting its photos printed. I figured that whatever images the camera captured would help me identify its owner. Whoever it was may even want the pictures back. So I took the pictures to get developed. When I got the photos, I was a bit confused. For those who don't know, a disposable camera roll can take up to 27 pictures. The camera was full and each pic was of random locations. Most of them were of buildings like restaurants and hotels. I recognized these places as they were all in my hometown. For context, I lived in a big city. I figured the photographer was some tourist, but that still wouldn't explain why the camera was in my house. As I examined the photos, I noticed something in each one. There was this strange blur in the background. These blurs were a dark shade of blue. I don't know how long I've been trying to analyze these forms. When I gave up, I decided to hand them to my brother, John. He was a police officer. When I showed the photos to John, he thanked me for giving them to him. Noticing my confused face, John directed my attention to one of the photos. It was of a movie theater a few blocks from my neighborhood. John then pointed at the signs above the entrance. It was one of those theaters that lists the names of whatever movies are playing there. In this photo, the sign read, "Now showing Beetlejuice." If you're too young to remember, Beetlejuice came out in 1988. This meant that the picture was taken that year. John explained that there was a cold case that involved locations in every one of the pictures. In 1988, there was a series of murder cases in our city. 27 people were found dead in the exact locations these pictures were taken. Each victim was stabbed through the heart. It was as if they were impaled with a katana. The victims didn't have anything in common. Their ages ranged between 25 and 38. The first body was found behind a hotel on March 17th. Every day since then, a new victim had been found daily, but for some reason, the killer stopped after the 27th victim. Each victim was stabbed through the heart. It was as if they were impaled with some katana. The victims didn't have anything in common. Their ages ranged between 25 and 38. The first body was found behind a hotel on March 17th. Every day since then, a new victim has been found daily. But for some reason, the killer stopped after their 27th victim. The police never caught the perp. I asked John what he thought of the blurs in each photo. Unfortunately, he was just as clueless. Our best bet was to have the police examine the images. John suggested that the pictures could have been taken by the killer himself. As for the blurs, they could have been smudges or something. Days passed, and I eventually forgot about the incident. In my hometown, I worked in a local cinema. I was cleaning one of the empty theaters when I heard a strange noise. I stopped what I was doing and listened closely. As I followed the noise, I realized it was a soft moan coming from the corner of the room. I then saw someone lying face down. I ran over to them and asked if they were okay. It was a woman wearing a yellow dress. For the record, this was during the winter, yet this woman was wearing clothing fit for spring. I was about to ask her again if she was okay when I saw something on her back. Before I could process what it was, the woman abruptly sat up. Her eyes were missing and blood was pouring from her sockets. In my shocked state, I saw a large slit in her chest. The woman was rambling something called animosceps. I was so freaked out that I booked it out of the theater. Another staff member stopped me and asked what was wrong. Her name was Jill. Still shaken up, I told her what I just witnessed. Jill went pale when I explained everything. Apparently, she saw the same thing just a few weeks ago. It was then that something finally dawned on me. One of the photos taken by that disposable camera was of my workplace, the same one that was showing Beetlejuice. When I told Jill about the camera and its contents, we concluded that the woman was one of the victims. What I couldn't understand was why this spirit was appearing at random. Later that day, I asked John if there were any strange sightings at any of the crime scenes. Apparently, John had dealt with reports of ghost sightings in the former crime scenes. But since the police never take such things seriously, they never looked into it. That night, I tried to get some sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what the spirit told me. What's animosceps? I went on Google and typed the word in. To be honest, I had no idea how to spell it. Thankfully, the internet got me covered. I found this website that talks about legendary weapons. I found animosceps on a page dedicated to swords. According to the website, animosceps is known as the condemning sword. It's made entirely of bronze and has a 3-inch blade with strange symbols engraved on it. The sword was forged by an evil sorcerer during the Bronze Age. When someone is stabbed through the heart with animosceps, their soul is trapped on Earth forever. They usually appear at night in the place where they died with the wound visible and their eyes missing. I never would have believed it if I didn't see that ghost with my own eyes. I emailed the page link to John. John replied, saying that he'd seen the sword before. He was investigating a murder when he found the same sword in the killer's basement. I should mention that the murders from '88 happened when this killer was about a year old. However, she admitted that she inherited the sword from her dad after he passed. Thanks to this woman, the case of the 27 murders was solved. It's a shame that the man will never be brought to justice, but at least animosceps won't curse any more souls. Animosceps is currently sitting in the evidence room. However, I couldn't feel safe until I moved far away from my hometown. As for the disposable camera, I still don't know how it ended up in my attic. If I had to guess, I'd say that one of the victim's ghosts put it there. I also now know that the killer really was the one who took those photos. However, I can't figure out how that crazy family obtained animosceps in the first place. I try not to think about it and be glad that that cursed sword can never be used again.